We are officially recording. So welcome. It is the top of the hour. It is 5:01 p.m. Pacific time. It is crazy. It is actually raining in Los Angeles tonight. There is something in the air. And yes, it might be an El Nino, which is a little crazy too. It'd be my first El Nino here as a West Coaster. So I'm so excited because last week was our first Twitter chat / blab collaboration, and it totally exceeded my expectations. We had such a phenomenal turnout. We had such great chatter. We kept the Twitter chat as well as the blab dialogue both going at the same time. Roberto Blake, who's already, generating convo in the chat. Love him. He was our amazing guest last week. We talked how to monetize your YouTube channel and more of the business side of YouTube. And tonight we're totally changing gears. We have a phenomenal expert for our Blab collab this evening. Her name is Ashley Stahl. She happens to be one of the most sought out career coaches for 20-somethings and 30-somethings-year-old around the world. And she is helping millennials discover their authentic careers and land more jobs. She has been around the block. She's been everywhere. Forbes, Bloomberg, Mashable, Self, the Huffington Post, the Wall Street Journal. You name it, she's been there. And she also happens to be literally one of my favorite people on the planet. Also a bridesmaid in my wedding. And with us this evening, and we're totally diving into all things job hunt, how to discover that dream job, how to get the salary of your dreams, and more. Let's get the conversation started. Let's turn it to Twitter, Ash, before we really start talking to each other. I'm going to send out the first question right away.
Okay.
So Q1 is being sent, everyone.
Okay.
Here we go. If my internet will work for me. And then, great. So how this evening's going to go, how we did it last week, which really seemed to work, was I always announced when I was going to send the next question via Twitter, so that Ashley has a moment to answer the question via Twitter, and then we can get more in depth about each question here on our Blab Hangout. So Q1 is officially out. Ashley, take your time to send your answer.
Okay, so Q1 is all about what is one way for people to get clarity on their authentic path. I'd love to know, kind of based on who's here, who's kind of dealing with that right now, like who's looking for clarity, who is that important for right now?
Yes, and feel free to also, we are taking callers, so feel free to call in. We are going to make the callers, short, sweet, and to the point so that we could take as many callers as possible because we have a lot of ground to cover. We do have a hard out at 6 tonight as well. We ran overtime last week. So the first question again was, what is one way for people to gain more clarity on their authentic career path? I think it's such a great question to kick off the hour of this topic in particular, because there's some crazy statistic, Ash, that I wish I had knew it off the top of my head, but the amount of people that actually go to school for a major that end up in that profession is so low. And you would think that college would be a time to explore what career really is, the right one for us. But me personally, I'm like, I need to have experience in the field with people in this profession to understand, do I like it? Don't I like it? So what is the most authentic way for people to get clarity on this really important thing? I mean, your job is, such a humongous part of your life. It would be nice to love what you do.
Yeah, no kidding. And I think that this is the generation that really values that. I see Roberto, that's awesome, that people need to think about what they really want to accomplish and experience. Awesome, exactly. So experience counts for something, and you can create your experience, which is one of my favorite things in the world. A lot of people kind of resign to the fact that they don't have experience, and they believe that they're kind of at a stop because of that. But my thing is create experience. So what are some things that you can do to get yourself some experience, to brand yourself in the areas that you're curious about? One way could be blogging. I know Chelsea Cross has a blog. Another way could be joining meetup groups, taking a class. These are all different, or volunteering is a great way. These are all ways to get experience. But I think an even deeper question, and I posted this in the Twitter chat, is who inspires you? That's just a great starter question when you're thinking about what you want to do with your life, because a lot of people get stuck. They don't know what they want to do. But at the end of the day, start off by asking, well, who do you think is doing something great? And what does that have to do with you? What is it that's out there that motivates you, and why do these people inspire you? Kind of taking it to the next level. Why are they interesting to you? What do you want in your own career that they have in theirs?
Absolutely. And think about it. I mean, we're using social media right now. We're using two platforms at one time. I think that exploring the social space is such an amazing, very free tool to explore influencers in different spaces. And, you know, when you say like find someone that you like what they do, I think that's the way the world goes around. You know, we all somewhat are monkey see, monkey do, but how do you know until you really start putting yourself out there for what other avenues do you like, but also what other things are you good at?
Yeah.
Like what type of abilities have you not tapped into that you could tap into and monetize?
Right. And also just the idea that clarity comes from engagement. It doesn't come through thought. A lot of people get stuck thinking their way in, and they think that the more that they think, the better the answer is going to be. It's not true. You're really going to figure out what you want to do in the world through trying things, not through thinking about things.
You know what? At M. Gross Taylor just said such an amazing point that I have to bring up. Great question asking who inspires us. Millennial mindset of trying new things makes us envy other generations, have to take a leap of faith and explore our passions. And, you know, we are talking about the millennial job hunt. And I feel like yes, we all weren't really alive and aware of how Gen Xers got compared to baby boomers, but I feel like there is such a microscope and a magnifying glass on the millennials, and especially in the workplace. You know, millennials are reshaping the job place. Da, 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 da. Let's just talk generation barrier real quick, Ashley. Are millennial workers, you know, people who are job hunting right now, really so different than generations prior? And is there some sort of disconnect when a millennial goes into the workplace for an interview that they could, you know, be aware of, so there's not so much of a disconnect and maybe relate a little bit on a more defined level?
Yeah. And I love that you're asking that, because it's true, there is some generational differences. And I think the most obvious one is our focus on purpose and how that's been different from past generations. I think one of the things that explains that is just education. We've all invested in ourselves. Many of us, most of us, have invested in some sort of education, whether we complete it or not. We've invested in it. We've put time into it. And so we've left that wanting something that means something. Whereas past generations, they were the generations of work, putting their heads down and doing the work. And not really kind of stopping, breathing, and saying, well, does this mean something to me? There's a little bit more of a survival mentality, right? So I think one of the most fundamental things to be sensitive to is transparency, and also the desire to be connected to the person you're interviewing with. And what I mean is that I think a common mistake a lot of millennials make in their job interviews, and I'm included back in the day, is wanting to be kind of chummy with the interviewer. We are the generation of connection. We really believe in sharing ideas. We get really excited about them. Chelsea, you're like the first person I contact when I get all giddy about ideas. So you know that's how we are. But and I don't want to generalize, but largely that's the case. So I would say don't be too chummy with your interviewers. Don't try to act like they're your best friend. They're still interviewing you. They're still assessing how you are as a candidate, and you don't have it in the bag till you have it in the bag.
Like that. And to end on that note, I'm about to send out Q2. Ash, if you want to get ready to start sending out your answers to question 2.
Yep.
Here we go. Question 2 is, are there any exercises you can recommend for Gen Yers / millennials to get career clarity?
Yeah, and I think I accidentally sent this out, is informational interviews. As I'd said earlier, clarity comes from engagement. It doesn't come through thought. Something that's really going to make a difference for you is to come up with some clarity on like, well, who's interesting to you and where are they? And you can use tools like LinkedIn. Take a look at LinkedIn, figure out who's out there on LinkedIn that's interesting to you. Find what profiles seem really fun to you, whose shoes you'd want to be in, and come up with a really long list of people that you'd love to talk to, and be fearless in contacting them and asking for a quick moment of their time. You want to be conscious. Like, obviously you don't want to reach out to a therapist and ask for their time. That's what they do for a living. But if you can find someone who's a professional, ideally a potential boss, someone that could actually champion you, so long as you don't come across too vulnerable and too chaotic, it would be a really strategic move to get on the phone and say, look, you really inspire me, and I really want to hear about you. Don't just pick up the phone and call them, though. Don't put them on the spot. Get on their calendar and email them.
I love that idea. We did just have a caller and then they disappeared. We are taking callers. It might just take a minute or two to get to you just so we can finish the point. Oh, Joel is calling back. Ashley, are you ready for a call in?
Yeah. Hey, whoever.
Okay. Here we go. We're letting Joel into the chat.
Hey there.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm actually a counsellor, and you were just talking about counsellors, and as it goes, I'm a counsellor who's currently making a course on how to network yourself into a job. And I was just loving the points that you were making about being fearless, about going and having conversations with people who might be able to share about what their job's about. And I just thought they were really great points and wanted to say that. And I didn't have any questions really, but I just wanted to add my 2 cents.
Hearing positive feedback, Joel. I mean, you can tell us that anytime.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Stars.
Yeah, no worries. Oh, not Australia, by the way. New Zealand. Big difference. Winners of the World Cup. Australia's or losers. Anyway. I do have a question, actually, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
Part of the course that I'm putting together, the online course about helping people get jobs, it's my focus is to not focus too much on your CV and that side of things, so much as really focus on networking, talking to the people that you know that may be connected to jobs that you could be interested in. And I'm wondering what your critique might be of that way of looking for jobs.
Yeah, I mean, I think networking is everything. 80% of jobs, don't get posted. And then of the 20% of jobs that do, half of them get screened by talent software. So anyone who's applying for jobs online is hitting, 10% of the market. So I like your strategy. The only thing I would say is this: I think your CV still really counts.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it still counts because people want to look at it. It's a way of them condensing their time. People will want to decide if they even want to sit down over coffee with you. Sometimes that's their way of kind of moving through all the emails that come in through their daily life, is kind of seeing, well, is this worth my time? So I would definitely still add a focus on resume.
That makes sense. And what about LinkedIn? Is LinkedIn the new CV, or do we need the CV as well?
I think LinkedIn is everything. And I think that company is worth every penny that it's valued at. I mean, honestly, if I wasn't a career coach, I think I'd go work for LinkedIn.
Yeah, right.
I'm your #1 fan. Honestly, I don't think, though, that LinkedIn is a replacement for your CV. I think it's a place to network. It's a place to get clarity. I give my clients in my online program tons of exercises on LinkedIn because I think it's so powerful. So yeah, I would definitely add a component on LinkedIn.
Cool. No, that's great. Thank you. That's helpful.
Great to talk to you.
Cool.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for calling in, Joel. All right. So I'm about to send out Q3.
Okay.
And we're about to dive into the job hunt, which I'm really excited about because I just feel like everyone can relate to the frustrations of the job hunt, right? Or everyone's always experiencing it, whether it's firsthand, secondhand, thirdhand. So I want you to pick your brain and also allow everybody else to pick your brain. So question 3 is, what are the first steps to tackle when job hunting? Is it the resume? Is it making a list? What is it? I feel like it's very overwhelming. I also feel like the job hunt is a job in itself.
It is.
So where do we begin?
Yeah, we already talked about clarity, but I have to say that's the first thing. If you're applying for jobs and you start to kind of go down that dark path of applying for everything and realizing that you don't even know what you want, then I would spend some time, I would stop your job hunt and really spend some time clarifying what you want, meeting with people, engaging, doing whatever it is you need to do to get in front of people and talk to them about their lives so you can figure out if that's what you want in your life. But let's assume that you have clarity. I would say the first thing to do when you're job hunting is to get an elevator pitch. You need to know how to talk about yourself. You're somebody who's so fantastic at that, Chelsea, and I think that's why so many people get you and follow you, is that you're so you're an easy person to connect with. And I think that's what it's about, is being able to talk about yourself in a way that inspires people to help you. And part of that means being personable. Another part of that means having a goal in mind so that people kind of know how to help you.
Mm-hmm. And thank you so much for the compliment, first of all. But it really did take years of practicing before I could say that I was good at my elevator pitch, especially, when you're 16 years old trying to do something that was so foreign at the time. Yeah. There's only so much how to leverage yourself so that it makes sense to the other. But here's something that I always preach. And, again, I am not a career coach, but I have built a personal brand. So I feel like it does go hand in hand, on the job hunt and also building a brand, which you are always your brand, right? And on the job hunt, you are selling yourself for that position. And I feel like an elevator pitch could be something of who you are as an individual, and then also the elevator pitch of who you are in your established career space. And I always used to tell even college students how incredibly impressive and what a great networking tool it was to always have a business card. And now we have plenty of different avenues to represent ourselves. You know, WordPress is so easy. We all have our own blogs or websites or Tumblr or LinkedIn page. So put what you update the most on that business card, who you are, maybe your skill set. Even if you're on that job hunt, you could leave them with that at the end of it, and it might go, oh, that's, you know, something to remember that person by. Yeah. Like, you need a personal pitch of who you are and what you do, and then also a defined you know, when you're established in that role, in that job role.
Yeah, I saw a quote somewhere that said, like, I'm not stopping working until I don't have to introduce myself. You know, it's like you want to work on your brand, and I think that's great. As far as the job hunt goes, I don't think that the personal websites are going to move the needle unless there's something on there that you've created, whether it's press for yourself or articles you've written, unless you're an artist and you're hosting all of your art on there. But I would say definitely it's something that doesn't hurt. It's something to have out there, and it's something to build off of. So if you have a personal page, go ahead and put some time into putting something worth branding on there, whether that's articles you've written, places you've gone and spoken at. People are always looking for speakers. And if you're an expert on something, if you spent a few years working on something that's going to add value, go speak about it. It's going to add value for some crowd that hasn't been in your shoes the past few years. And that's something to really add to your personal brand. But as far as your elevator pitch goes, and I'm seeing some stuff here. It's always about who we know, including elevator pitch. Yeah, it is about who you know. But your elevator pitch creates people for you to know. And here's why. And I talk about this. I know you mentioned this to you. I'm doing a free training for job hunters at landmorejoboffers.com. And I'm going to write that down right here, landmorejoboffers.com. I do a free training on it. And one of the things I cover is the goal statement of your elevator pitch and how important it is for you to be able at the end of your pitch. So when somebody says, tell me about you, you are able to say some sort of goal statement that I'm looking at you getting props like crazy from, that's pretty amazing. You're getting some props, Chelsea. But at the end of your elevator pitch, you want to have a goal statement that basically says something like, at the moment, I'm looking to transition into, ideally in the X industry. So at the moment, I'm looking to transition to communications, ideally in the fashion industry. You want to have a one-line goal statement so that it kind of hangs like an olive branch, and it gives people the opportunity to decide if they want to help you. I think a lot of job seekers make the mistake of saying, can you pass my resume? Can you forward my resume? Can you connect me to this person? And that's great if you're close to someone and you can ask the favor, but you want to establish a relationship in the first place. And that's why kind of having a goal statement lets it linger in the air and lets people kind of decide if they want to help you.
I actually love putting it out there. One of my biggest pet peeves, and not to sound rude in any way, just being transparent for a second, is getting an email from someone that's open-ended. And you know that they want something, but you have no idea from the email what it is that they would like. And sometimes I feel like everyone's busy. We move 100 miles a minute to, so put it out there. Put it on display. Make it very clear as to what you're looking for or what type of avenue you could see yourself going down. Like you said, I'm interested in a communications job at a fashion company. I just feel like the less you have to make people think about what it is that they want, the more likely you will actually get what it is that you want.
Yeah, exactly. And I also kind of caution people to use the word job, because when you say the word job, it puts people's guard up, especially in conversation, because people feel like you're about to ask a favor. So even saying the word transition, like I'm looking to transition into communications, ideally in the fashion space, it's soft, it's clear what you're looking for. And it allows people some space and breathing room, not to feel like you're cornering them and asking a favor, but they can clearly see that you could use their help if they want to offer it up.
Roberto Blake sent in a really amazing question, and I would love to read it out loud and get your answer. So he says, a lot of times the barrier to being hired is experience. What are your thoughts on starting your own business or building a personal brand before entering the job market to counter this weakness?
Okay. One more time, Chelsea. I got distracted by all the tweets, I'm being honest.
Oh, I know. There's a lot going on. So a lot of times the barrier is being in being hired is your experience.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on starting your own business or building a personal brand before entering the job market to counter this weakness? So building a personal brand, building a business to gain experience, does that help or hurt you in the workplace?
I think it always helps you, right? And you and I are the best people to be even asking that. I mean, you're someone who started your radio show when you're 16 years old. And I started my business when I was, I believe, 26 years old. Now I'm maybe even 25 years old. It's been a few years. And honestly, at first I thought that that was a weakness, but I'm finding now that it's a strength, because a lot of people who can be your client, if you're in a business and you're starting a business, there's a lot of research and data that shows, and my own mentor was talking about this, that people like to hire people who look like them, meaning age.
True?
Yeah, like
a little narcissistic.
look like them, like as far as age, same profile. So if you're a 25-year-old, you want to hire someone that's kind of meets you in the age that you're in. And so there's some certain advantages of being able to level with certain people. You also have a fresh perspective. So I would say pay attention to your mindset. Like I'm really hearing that you have a mindset that the odds are against you because of your age. And I don't know if that's true. But yeah, it always is going to help you to build some sort of personal brand, to add some sort of value through your own business, through your own brand that has nothing to do with the job you're looking for or has everything to do with it. But put in the effort and put in the time and create your experience. That's exactly what we were talking about.
Totally. And I can only imagine that how many people, maybe you know the statistic as well, interview for the same job. So you're going up against so many candidates who probably have certain amount of experience, blah, blah, blah. So if you do have some sort of personal brand or presence built, that would separate you from the rest of the competition.
Yeah.
Or maybe some personal experience makes you stand out amongst the rest.
Yeah, definitely. And it shows up in your bank account too, in your salary negotiations. It's like, should we have this person, or all things considered, the person who has a brand online that people know about? Why not?
/ I keep a personal brand alive, and I'm also, a co-founder of a startup, which is a digital marketing and production agency. And because I have built both, I'm able to monetize both at the same time, which, makes for very successful months. Yeah. And also, being a startup owner, very empty wallet at the same time. But, I would also imagine millennials are complete hyphenates. So, you can always have a side hustle, and building that personal brand gives you the opportunity to continue that side hustle.
Yeah. And I don't see any reason why you wouldn't have a side hustle. Everyone knows something that people would pay for, even if it's as simple as your language skills. And I just think there's always value in making cash on the side that has nothing to do with your job or everything to do with your job. But it gives you that sense of independence, and it gives you a brand to stand on.
Totally. Well, Neil just sent a question about resumes, and it's perfect timing because I just sent out Q4. Okay. So actually, send out your answer for Q4. Q4 is, let's get to the bottom of resumes. What are the do's and don'ts? I feel like every person you ask, they have their own agenda about resumes, what you should put, what you shouldn't put. But let's hear it from a current career coach who clearly knows a thing or two about this space.
Yeah.
Give us the dish on the resumes these days.
I had a client today in one of my group coaching programs tell me that she read on a blog somewhere that you should take your education off your resume. And I've never heard that before. But my point is there's a lot out there. And so I'm really glad to kind of just myth bust first and foremost. And so I want to just kind of go through some of the things that most people kind of ask questions about that I hear all the time. Your resume does need to be a page unless you have 15 years of experience. Unless you're the Queen of England. I mean, you don't need 2 pages. Nobody's going to read the second page. There's an awesome article by Business Insider. And believe it or not, they did an eye scan. They tested people's eyes to see where they go on resumes. The second page is trash every time. Nobody reads it.
Wow.
So don't put it because they judge you for putting it and they don't read it. So it's like a double ding.
How interesting.
Yeah, just don't even think about doing it. The second thing about resumes is you want to look at your bullet points. And this is one of the best tips that I have. It's something that I talk about in the free training I talked about at landmorejoboffers.com. So for those of you who haven't signed up for that, head over to landmorejoboffers.com. I'm going to get into this in my free training. But it's something I talk about is really, truly how important it is to have your first bullet under each job be your best bullet. So you want to make sure that the first bullet under every single job is accomplishment-based. It's about impact that you've had. It's about something you're proud of. Your first bullet always needs to be your best bullet. And if it's not, you want to reorder your bullets. A second thing you want to do with your resume is you want to make sure everything's about impact. Of course, your job description is important. Of course, it's important for people to get what you're doing, why you're doing it. But what's more important is that they know you're a performer and you're an executor. So you want your bullets to really show what value, and somebody needs to be able to look at your resume and say, this is the value that this company got from hiring her. This is the value that that company got from hiring her. If they can't say that, your resume is too much about your job descriptions.
Interesting.
Question. What is, from Kenya, I hope I didn't just hurt your name. What is the ideal way to express and explain your interest in an internship that's located in another state? This is one of my favorite things in the world, is getting a new job, or when a client gets a new job in a new place without having to move there first. It's something I've done, and it's like job hunting ninja. You can see me get excited.
And I always feel like when you you submit a resume looking for a job in a new state, that works against you, because they're like, oh, well, it's not I need a quick turnaround and they can't move and get settled here. So is that also a myth? And how do you
I think there's some truth to that, but there's a couple things you can do to mitigate it. So the first thing is, if you have an address where you're wanting to move, whether it's a close friend or a family member, it can't be something inauthentic. So if it's someone that you could actually properly stay with, put that address on there. You want to take the guesswork out of the recruiter's head. There's nothing wrong as long as it's not a lie. If it's the truth, you would stay there. If you were to move there, that's where you would be. All you need to know is, if you're asked about it, you need to have an effective answer. So if somebody says, what's the deal with this address? You want to be able to say something like, well, that's an address that I would live in if I were to be there. That's a residence that I have access to. You want to have a clear answer, and that's all you really need to focus on. If you're trying to get a new job in a new state, I would also come up with a list of companies you want to be in, and get informational phone calls on the calendar, asking people how you could stand out for the company.
Love that.
Whoop, whoop.
Love that. Love that. Then also, you know how, one other resume question before I move on to Q5, but there's always a section of like additional skills.
Yeah.
And I just had an experience for the first time last year when I was looking to hire for the Impulse of reading resumes. And I was like, wow, okay, the tables have turned here. Like, I'm actually reading a resume. So I started to notice, after scanning through resume after resume, what I was actually looking at the most.
Yeah.
Again, this is me as a one employer out of the universe, but in the communications, production, social media space, I think familiarity, tongue twister, with the various software tools out there in social media, in graphic production, so that someone could crank it out. Even familiar. Oh my God, I'm not even going to try to do it.
Well, now you got me.
Familiarity, similarities. I found myself, here's the moral of the story. I found myself looking at the additional skills.
Yeah.
Because when I was comparing the two that were so similar, I was like, I would look for the one who had stronger skill set in other software tools that would be a benefit to my company. So is it important to make sure that you're not saying skilled at, water skiing, and really putting, skills that apply to the workplace?
Yeah. Well, there's certain jobs that applies to, right? Like, if you're looking for a top 4 management consulting firm, they care that you were the captain of the soccer team. They want to see some sort of competitive edge and competitive personality. But otherwise, no, the fact that you water ski is not interesting and it's taking up room on your resume. Unless you're looking in the creative space, there's certain companies that are interested in that kind of stuff. But I would really make sure that every line on your resume is being used as real estate that has value. And you don't ever want to fill the space. And I think the additional skills section is an area a lot of the time that fills the space. And you mentioned social media and stuff like that. I would only put that if it's relevant to the job.
Right.
Anything to do with the job. And if it does, put it in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So funny. We're getting so many questions in the Twitter world. Like, should your resume be actually one page? And I loved your insight about how people don't even get to the second page. So yes, one page only for resumes, everybody. All right. Moving on to Q5. We do have a caller. Tony, I see you. Let's send out Q5. Let Ashley send out her answers, and then we will take a caller.
Okay. Who's calling?
All right, so Q5 has been sent out. Let's take a caller, and then we'll dive into. Oh, we just lost Tony. Tony, if you're still with us, you can call us back anytime. So we just sent out Q5. Q5, when it comes to job hunting, what's the best way to get an offer fast? I feel like, is that even possible to say, I'm going to get an offer fast?
Yeah, I think, most of my clients in my group program, I think it's like 80% are getting an offer within 8 weeks. So it's, yeah, it really is not hard to get a job offer. I think when you really have a chronological, orderly way of going about the hunt. And that's what I'm here for. And I think if you want a quick job offer, stop applying for jobs online. It's a waste of your time. Get really clear on who you need to contact, who's in a hiring role at the companies you want to be at. Use tools like LinkedIn, use tools like the advanced search on LinkedIn, and get really clear who is in that company that's on the team that you want to be on, that's in a role that can hire you. You don't want to reach too high. You don't want the CEO. You don't want the vice president. You want people who can actually hire you, unless that would be your direct boss, your direct manager. And send them a cold email, letting them know how excited you are about what the company's doing and how enthusiastic you would be to hop on the phone really briefly, learn more about them, and share and just get some insights on whether that's a great company for you moving forward. I think that cold emails are so powerful, and a lot of people who respond, and understand not everyone's going to respond. I think the average is around 1 in 8, and that's okay if they don't respond. You don't want people who don't get networking to respond to your networking inquiry, because then you're going to have to sit through a networking conversation with someone who doesn't really get networking. So I would recommend being happy when people don't respond because they didn't get it. And take it that when the people do respond, they're people who get it, and you're going to want to have those calls with them. It's a numbers game. Keep sending those emails out until you get responses.
Okay, there's 2 great questions from people. One is from Twitter, and I love this question, from Christina Prater. And she wants to know, Ashley, if you're graduating from college, does it matter to put jobs you've had from high school on your resume?
If you're graduating, no, you want to cut the fat. You only want impact on your resume. Unless the job from college you had was a White House internship and you're trying to get some job in the government, you don't want to put it there. So unless the job has like some sort of extraordinary sex appeal for your job. Okay. Should I tweet into that right now? I'll tweet. I'm trying to find her right now.
I was actually just answering it for you. I told her I would ask the question because I thought it was such a great one. I feel like 99% of the resumes that I saw had high school on there if they had just graduated from college.
No need for that.
Relevance. Then I saw one other question from doc_JP. What's the best content for a cold email? Like you have no connection to this person. It's literally out of the blue and you're sending someone an email.
Yeah, the first piece is for you to apologize in advance lightly, and let them know how you found them. The reality is if you're hitting somebody's work inbox, that's where their priorities are. They're going to see your name. They're not going to know who you are. So I like to kind of apologize and be kind right off the bat. So saying something like, I found your name while researching. Let them know how you found them. I hope you don't mind me contacting you. Some sort of light apology. And then flatter them authentically, of course. Let them know what it is about their work that drew you to them. And ask them if they're willing to have a quick call or a cup of coffee if they're in your area. And that you could come to them at their convenience and that you're happy to make it easy for them.
Love that. I also get a bunch of cold emails every day, and the subject is what makes me open the email or not.
What are the good ones? Tell me.
Oh, God, I wish I had a good... I feel like think of the subject as your call to action. What are you looking for from that email? And can you put that into the subject line as a subject that makes sense? But so someone knows what they're kind of getting into by opening that email, and you haven't wasted their time officially by just sending them like a bunch of nothing. What are you asking for? Put it in the subject, and if they're into it, they'll open it. If not, they're going to pass it.
Average professional doesn't have probably as many inbox emails like you do every day as an entrepreneur. I know I get about 200 emails and thank God I have an assistant now because it's insanity.
Because that would take up the whole day.
Yeah, it does take up the whole, and I think that that's the case with someone like you, Chelsea. You have a lot of emails. So I would also be cognizant. I mean, the average professional, in their job isn't ideally going to have 200 emails in a day. It depends on the nature of their work, so they'll see it. But the subject line definitely counts for a lot. I actually was hiring a writer a while back, a writer or an editor, and she wrote in the subject line, "wildly talented writer." And I just thought it was very fun. And so I opened it. So I think that if you can be something professional, coy,
Yes.
make someone smile. I mean, come on now.
Totally. I love when I'm in a very professional email chain and someone's the first person to get a little unprofessional, so just show a little humanity behind, the professionalism, and then it just also creates a nice rapport. Of course, there are certain times where you cannot do that, but then there are certain times that you can.
The joy of being an entrepreneur is that there's the professionalism is kind of up to you. It's your business. You're not working for a company other than your own.
Very true. And there are certain clients that it's not allowed. And then there are certain clients that you can really have a little more fun. So you know what? I think something essential to making your job hunt successful / being a successful person in general, I'm clearly having language problems today, is becoming a successful networker. And Q6 that I just sent out is, how does one master a networking event?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk networking.
Yeah, I would say, like we kind of talked about the elevator pitch earlier, really mastering your answer to tell me about you. Don't make it long like my grandpa when he's like about to tell a long story and he kind of kicks back and it's going to be big. You don't want to do that. So practice, definitely practice. Because it's one of the most commonly asked questions in the world, tell me about yourself. Well, people assume, okay, well, that's an easy question. I know me. You don't. You want to think about it. You really want to think about what drives you. So I would say a good elevator pitch always starts off with a why you're interested in what you're interested in. People start with the what too often, and it's only so interesting. So it's like, why? So saying something like, what drives me to do what I do now, is a really inspiring way to start off with. Or I've always been the kind of person that, like, starting off with something compelling that pulls someone in to really get to know who you are beyond the title of your job and the work that you do. Of course, you're at a networking event and you can segue into job stuff, but really creating that initial connection, I think, makes a difference for people, especially because at a certain point or another, we've all had too many cheese cubes and too many bread, and the networking event is starting to get noisy. You want to be human.
Totally. And I also think that networking, aside from the tell me about yourself, because that's the platform to actually speak about you, short and concise, and again, to the point, because nobody wants to hear about you for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But I think one of the arts to master in networking is asking person questions, getting your interview on, extracting answers so that you know how to position yourself best for a potential collaboration or to work with them or to follow up with something. So if you can extract certain information, you can utilize that to your advantage in your follow-up. I think that's one of the ultimate reasons why you either solidify yourself as someone that's going to end up working with that person, collaborate with that person because you found the loophole that you could fill the void to in extracting that information from them when first talking to them. So I think networking is just as much asking questions as it is speaking about yourself and your skills.
Yeah, and speaking of asking questions, I saw someone put, what questions can you ask at the end of the interview? So, I mean, taking it out of networking for a minute and just with your interview, a great question to ask is, what does success look like in this position? What does success look like for the company in this position? Another good question is, if I could reach any goals in the next 3 to 6 months, what do you want to see? And write those down. If you're in a job interview and you're writing down what they want to see happen, they can tell that you're taking goals seriously. It makes a huge difference.
Totally. It always blows my mind when you're having an important meeting or discussions and someone's not taking notes, because I'm like, no one's going to remember all of that information. So I'm always very impressed when I see someone jotting down things, because again, we're all so crazy busy. We have the attention span of a goldfish, and sometimes we need to make reminders for ourselves. I am never without
these streams. I'm like, whoop, whoop, whoop. How do I give you the props? I'm still into that. What do I do?
If you want to give props, I mean, you're only able to really give me props. I'm the only other person, but you can click on the
Yay! Okay.
It is definitely a fun little addition to Blab. All right, so we have Q7 coming up. Let's get that one sent out there so we can start chatting about it. What's the toughest interview question, and how can we best prepare for the toughies? We started to talk about the question, tell me about yourself. But there's always those stumpers out there. what's your biggest flaw, tell, your biggest weakness. Like what do you think as a career coach are the questions we tend to choke most on?
Yeah, I just put down what's your biggest weakness. I think most people just get really, really nervous about that one. There's a few things you could do to answer that, like a boss. The first thing would be to pick something that you have been working on. It doesn't have to be something that's a fresh wound, and it especially can't be something that's necessary for the company. If you're applying to be a coder, you don't want to say coding is your weakness. But pick something you've been working on. So let's say it's public speaking. The next step you're going to want to say is what you've been doing to work with that. So, for example, you could say something like, I noticed that public speaking was a weak spot for me. I used to get really sweaty and nervous when I was about to public speak. So what I decided to do a few months ago was take a public speaking class. And it's just been so fun to overcome that. And then you want to kind of show your progress. So now that you've shown what you're doing with it, show your progress. So say something like, I'm noticing that people at work are commenting on my public speaking skills, and I was just asked to do this big presentation in front of my client, and then just kind of share where you're at with it. And I just feel so good to know that this isn't something that gets in the way for me anymore, but it's always something that I'm working on and I'm really committed to. So you want to show action.
Totally. I was doing a little research about this because I feel like there is a lot of content about the job space out there, but I think also sometimes we just see the same thing over and over again. Look, we're all talking about the same myths all the time that we're also debunking here on our Blab Collab. And I Googled the biggest job search trends for 2015. And I was so unimpressed by the biggest trends of 2015. And the first trend was, we actually just talked about it a little bit earlier, it's who you know. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I get so frustrated about, but then, having great context also works to your advantage. But for the people who don't have the contact, they don't have the networking, mentor in that solidified space.
Yeah.
How could we get around that, being that it's the biggest trend for 2015? It seems like a cop-out to me. Seems like the writer got a little lazy. So how do you defeat that trend?
The best. The writer got.
Sorry, I'm not going to call out the writer, but to me, that trend seems like so 100 years ago.
Open his door and be like, you got to rewrite that article. Well, it is who you know, right? But I would say it's a cop-out. The biggest cop-out is saying you don't have contacts. Because you do. And I would say one of the biggest problems that I see in job seekers is that they try to network with people they know, and they pat themselves on the back saying, I'm doing a good job networking. I'm networking with friends and family. Friends and family aren't going to move the needle for you unless your friends and family are like Obama. You want to really take some time to kind of think, well, how can I get to know people who are out there, the people who have the power to hire me, typically the people you don't know. How can I get in front of those people? Where do they hang out? Like I said earlier in this chat, where's the party at? Where are all the people that you need to be meeting? Are they at a conference? What kind of industry events are there? How can you put yourself there so you can have those conversations, create those contacts, ask those people to cups of coffee, add value to those people? There's a book by Gary Vee, Jab, 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 Right Hook. And he talks about how so many people, have you read that book, Chelsea? It's just like, how so many people try to sell on the first, conversation. It's like such a right hook. Yeah. You see it on Twitter in the DM box all the time where they're like, check out my thing. And you're just like, whoa. It's like you look at your DM box and you're like, oh my God, let's do this. And so I would say do some jabs, like really kind of get to know the person, like caress the relationship, but you know what I mean? Like, work on the relationship, get to know the person, ask good questions, be memorable, ask for a business card, email them after, create contacts.
Yes.
Put yourself where the contacts are. If you're in the United States, there's some really great networking events everywhere. One is called Network After Work. I think they have an event every month in every big city. And I love them. I think they're great. You have to book your ticket online early. I think it's $10 and you get a drink. It's so funny, that event. I mean, it's like the prom. There's like 400 people there. So you gotta go.
This question that we were just talking about, which is, how do you overcome the tough questions? Like, what's your biggest weakness? Tell me, everyone who's joining us right now, if you watched the last Republican debate, one of the first questions to all the candidates was what's your biggest weakness? And I was like, this is such an interesting question because you don't want to kick yourself in the foot being that you want to run the country. And, I was waiting for that stellar answer, like that person that was just going to be like, I'm going to use that for the rest of my life, that answer. And nobody gave me that stellar answer. And if for everyone who knows what I'm talking about, I'd love to know who you thought answered the question best. Side note, political question. But I found that question to be very interesting.
Amazing example, though. You're right, because it's like, who would think even in a political debate, you're still getting asked job interview questions. Life is a job interview.
Right. It just happens to be in front of the nation. But I was just waiting for that stellar answer, being that all the candidates are so prepared for these debates. And I don't think anyone slayed it. I also think that people worked around the question too. But I'm just interested to know for anyone who did see or remember that question, who they thought answered it best. So let's move on to our next question, being that we're creeping on less than 15 minutes left of the chat. Question 8 being sent out, what is the best follow-up protocol? I think following up is essential, but you don't want to be that person that, emails you like before they've even left off. Yeah. So where's that sweet spot?
Yeah, this is a great one because it is an area where you can totally blow it. And there's an article I wrote for my Forbes column about this because there's a lot of little areas that people accidentally blow it. Follow-up is one of them. Either you follow up too eagerly and you're like the eager beaver, not pretty, not exciting. Because job hunting's like dating, right? Like you don't want to overwhelm the company. I would say the first thing is if they tell you you're going to hear, you always want to ask when you can hear back because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you get home and you have no idea. So if you have an interview, make sure you remember to say, when can I expect to hear back from you? What's your timeline? And that way you kind of leave having a feel, of a ballpark of what to expect. But another great thing to do is if they say, oh, we're supposed to know by the end of the month, give them some breathing room after their deadline to you. So if they tell you by Monday, give them until Thursday. It doesn't look good as a job seeker when it looks like you set an alarm on your iPhone to find out you got the job. Lock it up. And it's funny because I have so many clients, I help people privately, whether it's getting job offers, finding their purpose, launching their business. These are the 3 areas I help people. And it's like, I tell them, I'm like, just email me your stress about this.
Yeah, send to me.
I won't judge you. Or post it in my client Facebook group so that we can kind of like give you a thumbs up because you do not want that to show with the employer. Another thing is thank you notes. You always want to send a thank you note literally the same day, literally within a few hours. Snail mail is out. It doesn't work. I wrote an article for Forbes about how somebody lost out on a job because they used snail mail.
Because there are a few people chiming in saying handwritten notes. So you're saying X-nay on the handwritten notes?
No, I think that is probably the worst thing you could do for yourself. Even though they show a lot, you want to follow up with those. I say handwritten notes are for you to maintain your network. I think handwritten notes are a great way for you to check in with people after months have gone by. That will make you memorable. A handwritten note after a job interview, it's going to take 3 days to get there. And by that point, they already thought that you forgot to do it. And that is going to count against you big time. So don't do that. Another thing with follow-up, I would say, is it's okay to follow up. And it's important to follow up. And if you don't get the job, there's nothing wrong with following up with them later and saying, hey, I just wanted to check in. I know that you guys hired someone. I hope that they were so great for you. That said, I'm still so interested in your company and I want to affirm my interest. A lot of people get job offers off rejections. That's something that I had a client make happen this week. They were rejected. They followed up 2 months later. The person wasn't working out and they got the job.
Interesting. Okay, well, that's a new technique to add to the list of techniques.
Yeah, for sure.
And is there a sweet spot to check in within, is like a 2-month window a nice amount of time, a healthy amount of time?
Yeah, because there's usually a 3 to 6 week trial period. So maybe like 6 weeks after you would assume that person has started the job. Maybe just email the hiring manager and just say you're checking in and you want to just reaffirm your interest in your, you hope for the best. You hope that they found someone great, but that you still stand very strong in your interest to support them as an employee.
Oh, really? That's a great tip. All right, so we're 10 minutes left, 2 questions to go. I'm going to send out Q9 right now, which is how to handle when the employer asks you about money. I think this is where, as a society, we're all just, just don't know how to react with asking for compensation or knowing your worth. And it can be really intimidating. So I can't wait to hear your answer for this one.
Yeah, money is just one of those things where people don't usually play it right. I would say the majority of the population isn't negotiating salary right now, and on average, they're losing out $500,000 throughout their career by not doing so. I also want to add that 15% of people who negotiate get even more than they asked for. So not only are there odds for you to get what you asked for, but to get even more than what you asked for. The best thing to say at the early stages of a job interview when you're being asked about this stuff is I'm negotiable depending on the range. And here's why. It could appear weak, but what I believe is you don't want to overprice yourself. You don't want to underprice yourself. And that's why it's so important for you to really kind of stay wobbly at the beginning so that you don't cut yourself out of the running for any reason. You want to hang out in negotiability until you want to play hardball and you have an offer in your hand.
Now, do you not even bring it up within the first interview? Do you wait till you get to phase 2? Like, don't be too aggressive in thinking like, okay, it's okay for me to talk money already. When's right timing to start talking compensation?
When the employer brings it up, you don't bring it up. It's just not something as a candidate that you do. I mean, it's like proposing marriage on a first date. And employers, it can come across as presumptuous a lot of the times because employers will look at you and they might think, well, I don't even know if we want to hire you, so we're not willing to release what our numbers are. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
Totally, which absolutely makes sense too. I'm just checking to see if there's any other money questions because I feel like this is one that always it's a little bit of a head scratcher, but you really answered it so clearly. Do you run the risk of not being hired if you negotiate salary and benefits? From Jared Buckley.
No, I very rarely have heard of the case where an offer will be rescinded because you tried to negotiate. And the bigger question that I would have for you is, do you want to work for a company, Jared, that would take an offer away from an employee who stands in their worth? That's not the kind of culture that you want to work for. So I would just I've only heard that. I've literally coached thousands of people on getting job offers, and I've heard of that happen once. So the odds are not in your favor of that happening.
The odds
are ever not in your favor.
All right, so let's creep into the last question of the evening, and then we can just chat for the last few minutes. Our last question is how to get more confidence. I feel like the job hunt can really leave you feeling defeated, especially if you're not hearing back, if you've gone on multiple interviews and something's not sticking. I can imagine that it's very easy to get down on yourself, and nobody wants a not confident employee. So how do we not allow that cycle to take over us and really be our own?
You would know this, Chelsea. This is something I know is that you want to invest in your mindset. So if you're not believing in yourself, if you're feeling like you don't deserve something, and one indicator of your mindset is anyone who's asked about whether they don't have enough experience, that's a mindset. Some people, I love that image. You've totally seen this of a kitten looking in the mirror and they see a lion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's some people who think like that, like they don't even think to ask the question, am I lacking something? Right. And that even takes into gender differences, and that's shifting now. There's a lot of gender research on how women versus men show up and what they're lacking or what they have to add. I would recommend really kind of paying attention to whether you're going into a mindset of lack. I don't have enough contacts. I don't have enough experience. The more you say I don't have enough, that's a mindset. And I would say, and I tweeted looking at a couple books. The first one is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. That book is all about mindset, and it's so awesome. What he talks about in that book is that we all have an upper limit problem. And what that means is that all of us, the question he really asks in the book is, are you willing for things to be good? Are you willing in your life to have a lot of money, to have things go well, to have a job you love, to have a good relationship? Are you willing to accept things going well? Because a lot of people actually get uncomfortable. And a great example of that could be like Bill Clinton. I remember reading a story where he walked into the White House decades before he was president and said, I'm going to be president. He got there and he sabotaged it. Whether he was a great president or not, I'm not even going to go there, but he sabotaged it by what happened in the news with Monica Lewinsky. So Gay Hendricks would argue that that's actually an upper limit problem, that he was sabotaging his own success. He hit an upper limit that was uncomfortable for him, and he put himself back down to a certain set point. People create drama when they're uncomfortable for themselves.
And you just hit such even a personal chord, to get personal for a second, is that I am so guilty of when things are actually going well, and I've probably said this out loud to you before, when things are going well, I feel anxiety because I'm like, something's about to happen, something's about to break, something's about to disconnect, something's about to go haywire. Like, what kind of crazy mindset is that we can't even appreciate the success we've built for us?
That's the question, right? Like, what is going on in all of our mindsets? And think about it, it really shows up with dating. Like, if you see someone doing something new, things are going well, it starts to give them nerves. They hit their upper limit of comfort, and they sabotage it to put it back down to what they're with. So that's all mindset work.
Very Samantha from Sex and the City.
I mean, Samantha.
She only lets it get to a certain level. What would we do without Sex and the City reruns on television? That's a whole other conversation. So we've essentially talked all throughout our 10 questions. We plowed through those babies. But I do have a few more things that I'd love to rattle off while we have just a few more minutes. And this is the time for everyone to send in their random questions now that we have, actually here to answer all these questions. Social media. Let's just talk about it real quick. According to a 2014 JobVite survey, 73% of recruiters have hired a candidate through social media. 93% of recruiters review a candidate's social profile before making a decision. Quick do's and don'ts for when you're in the job hunt, what your social channels should reflect.
Yeah, I would say really, really lock it up with your privacy settings. For example, with LinkedIn, if you're looking all over at different profiles, ask yourself, do you want people to know that you're looking at them? And if you don't, make sure you have your privacy settings to anonymous on LinkedIn. Another thing to kind of think about is your Twitter. You really, really want to pay attention and go deep into the history of your tweets, because let me tell you something, there are recruiters, and if they are thinking about hiring you, they will do everything. They will look at your tweets. Another really good website for you is brandyourself.com. So if anyone hasn't checked that out, brandyourself.com, I think they're great. They basically give you a rating of how you look on the internet. And if you have anything that's kind of embarrassing that you're not realizing is up there, like some weird MySpace account from the 90s, it will point it out. So I would recommend going to brandyourself.com and checking out and seeing what comes up on there.
Love that. I always love a good new software tool to explore, especially if it can enhance your personal brand, your job hunt, etc. Also, one other question that I found interesting on that article, the biggest trends for 2015 in the job search, mobile recruiting is on the rise. 51% of recruiters have plans to increase their investment in mobile recruiting. Is it something to take seriously for submitting an application or a resume or an inquiry via mobile app device? Or are there certain ones that you recommend?
Yeah, I think it's here to stay and it's here to increase. I haven't heard enough from recruiters, and I talk to recruiters all the time about them using it, but I think it's something on the horizon, and it's worth putting your time into getting to know who the key players are in mobile recruitment. And also just being aware, if there's certain companies that lean on it, there's going to be a much more present, a much more aggressive presence of them on those apps. So that's a good way of targeting companies. Figure out which ones use mobile recruiting and get on there if those are one of the companies you're interested in.
Well, we are 1 minute to 6 o'clock. Unfortunately, have our biggest amount of live tune-ins right now that we did throughout the hour. For all of the new people on, we start our Millennial Talk chats and our Blab Hangouts at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. They're an hour, so we're wrapping up. However, all of the Blabs are being recorded, and we will embed them on YouTube and both of our websites, so you will be able to catch up on all of this great content from this past hour. Ash, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing all of your incredible insight. Please check out Ashley's webinar if you are struggling on the job hunt. She really is not only just such an amazing career coach, but she's such a wonderful human to work with. And I feel like that's always a plus too, when you like the person that can also help you. So be sure to check out Ashley Stahl, ashleystahl.com. Ash, thank you so much. Good luck on the next endeavor.
And anyone who wants my free training, I get into all these topics, job interviews, salary, resume, everything. It's at landmorejoboffers.com. I think there's a few spots left for the training that I'm doing this week. Totally free, and it's my pleasure. So again, landmorejoboffers.com. I'm so happy to be here with you, Chelsea, and thanks for having me.
I just shared landmorejoboffers.com on the Blab portal, and I'll send it out via Twitter as well. Thank you so much. Again, a recap will be on both of our websites soon this week. Speak to you later, girl. And I'm so happy everyone joined. Thank you so much for all the questions and chats and props, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday. Bye, girl. Bye, everyone. Have a great evening.